And welcome to this week's call, Zoom call. We're opening up the Zoom room for the Accounting Influencer Mastermind WhatsApp and also the Rob's Accounting Work Winners. We've got about 170 people across both groups, but we just play with whoever shows up. And that's Kevin Whitehouse stepping into the room. His beard's coming along nicely there. Morning, Kevin. We're just starting. So listen, it's small enough for us to just go around a little bit and introduce ourselves, and let's just add to our introduction of what we do, of what's our biggest KPI right now in our role. So what are we expected to do in our current role, given everything that's going on? So whether you're your own boss or you're beholden to people, why don't you do that? Phil, you're my top left, so why don't I ask you to kick that off?
Hey, morning everyone. Phil Hobden, Head of Education at Capitalise. For those that don't know, Capitalise is an advisor-led funding platform. So we work with accountants to help them navigate the minefield that is the funding market currently. My KPI as Head of Education is to train. So I'm hosting anything up to 10 training sessions a week to work with a variety of different accountancy firms across the UK, big and small, to help them understand the funding market, understand how Capitalise can help, and understand how they can better help their clients.
Great, thank you, Phil. Kevin?
Hi,
quick intro on what's big on your agenda right now. What's your KPI?
Quick intro. I'm Kevin Whitehouse. I run an accountancy practice down here in Dorset. I've been doing that for 30 years. And I also mentor sole practitioners and newly starting out accounting practice owners. My biggest KPI or point at the moment that I'm dealing with is leadership. We need some leadership in the industry, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about that. It is on the agenda. Philippa, you're next.
Morning, everybody. So my name is Philippa Haynes from Insight 101. We are a brand strategy consultancy, but we focus primarily on accounting. Recently spoke at the QuickBooks Connect Live conference, which was meant to be at Olympia. It was still recorded there, but it was not live, unfortunately. So I talked to accountants around, their overall vision and their values and their brand, and how that, well, normally I would talk about the onboarding process and how that can be optimized. But obviously at the moment we're talking about, just emergency, how we're going to get through this, and how at some point are they going to think about their future practice? Because one of the things at the moment, as you all know, is that they are fighting fires left, right and centre, trying to sort out their clients and not really having the time to think about their own business. So at the moment, I'm just lending an ear, really. A lot of what I have been doing is postponed or on hold, but it's talking about how they get out, how once it's all begun to die down in the next few weeks, how they can then start to think about the future and what they've learned. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Great, thank you, Philippa. Robert.
Morning, everybody. Robert Plant from Catax. We're specialists in legislation, and the KPI at the moment is to make clients and accountants aware that to get cash back into a business, a brilliant way is looking at R&D tax credits, which people have not had time to look at in the past. And we're working from home, all the back office people working from home, so HMRC, percentage of them, and we're getting through claims quicker than normal. So just make people aware that cash is king, and a way of looking at it is getting R&D tax relief.
Great, thank you, Robert. Matt.
Thank you.
Matt Garman. I had a couple of tech businesses. I set up a sales consultancy company in 2012. We've been doing pretty well. I recently had a little bit of a pivot last year when we built a software as a service sales playbook platform. We're actually busy with that, not just outside of accountancy, but my main working and conversation with Rob is we're spending more time now with accountants that are looking to improve their BD capability, where quite frankly up to now it's been quite poor or non-existent, and also using a simple sales platform as a potential go-to-market for those firms to help add to their advisory portfolio moving forward at the moment. I'd say what's my KPI at the moment is helping clients, helping firms start readying for the rebound, as I call it, because I think there's good opportunity there moving forward. Yes, we've got to hunker down for a while, but it's going to be a different world as we come out of it. And I think a lot of, not only accountancy practices, but a lot of businesses in general are going to have to be fit, trim and lean and ready to rock and roll.
Thank you, Matt. Pete?
Yes, good morning, Rob. Good morning, everybody. And I hope you and your respective families are all keeping fit and well in these extraordinary times. Yeah, I'm Pete Fairchild, tax partner at Smith and Williamson. So I'm in the tax side, and of course you're probably aware that we have the sizable investment management arm to the firm as well. In terms of what's been going on recently that's occupying my time, well, lots of hats really. Still getting to grips with some of the detail that arose from last month's budget speech and taking clients through the changes that will affect them. Then, of course, as a private client individual, lots of pre-year end tax planning discussions with clients. And then this thing called COVID-19, which has put a few spanners in works, and all the new legislation that's come about from that. And it's just relaying the detail of that to clients and indeed prospects in the pipeline, that you know, how they could be benefiting from the help that's recently been announced. So yeah, despite the fact that we're not attending the office, I won't confess that I'm missing the commute, just that the working days got longer.
Wow. Thank you, folks. Nice introductions. And I've got a few topics to discuss, and you can certainly throw your own in. We'll be done in 30, 40 minutes or so. We try and keep it short and sweet. We don't waffle on. And this will go out there, so be mindful of what you want to share with the world. But it's just good to talk, isn't it, at times like this? And the question I want to throw up to you, and the way we do this is, if you want to talk, just throw your hand up or unmute yourself or jump in. We're a small enough group that we can do this. It's like a little panel discussion. But how is the accounting profession holding up right now? When you stress test something, it either buckles and breaks under the pressure, or it withstands the pressure. And I know the accounting profession is a big animal, but we've all got different perspectives on it. How is it holding up, and how is it performing? Is it fit for purpose? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Is it working? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll go first, Rob. Interestingly, so I think the industry is experiencing the generational change that we all expected MTD and bits before to lead, right? So we all thought that MTD was going to be the thing that changed the way firms had that relationship with their client. And actually it was, but not to the point that we thought. But this is. So I'm speaking to firms now, and they're saying actually where we've had blockers before in terms of moving clients to cloud, moving clients to different technology, actually those aren't there anymore. Like, clients realize that they can't dial into their server in their office and get onto their Sage 50 or Sage whatever it is, you know, and now they see, well, actually, damn, I need that cloud technology. So the pace of change has been moved in such a direction that I think it can never go back. I think what I'm seeing though, and what I'm hearing from accountants that I talk to, I'm not an accountant, never have been, never professed to be, but I talk to accountants on a daily basis, and a lot of them are so busy, right? I think they're realizing, as someone said earlier, it's you're working from home means you're working more efficiently, but you're working more efficiently for longer. And actually, do you know what? I think genuinely this bank holiday weekend has come up probably about the best point it could, because hopefully it will give people a time where they can actually step back and have some time away from Zoom, from Slack, from all these tools and reset. Because I think if everyone carried on working at this pace, I think people would start to burn out pretty quick.
How's the profession holding up?
I think the profession will cope in the very short term, but I think it's the long term is where the profession will struggle.
How do you mean, Kevin?
Well, if you take the historical view of what's been happening with January as an example, the January tax season, everybody's busy like crazy. Well, from what I can see, that's what everybody's doing right now. They're just busy, but they're just busy. They're not actually thinking about how to do this. I've spoken to people who are literally just phone call after phone call after phone call till 11 o'clock at night, 7 days a week. that's not how to run a practice regardless of COVID. That's just not how to run a practice when you're busy. You just shouldn't be doing that. It's not even how you run a business. Okay, you can't function like that. And I think many in the profession just don't know how to go about, communicating to the clients, positioning themselves, organizing appointments. A number of people have tried to book things with just cloud technology using calendars, and the average Zoom call starts with, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you see me?" It's just like, and all that's going to take a while to really come through. But I think if we're not careful, they'll all end up learning some really bad habits right now that in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, some of them just won't be able to change from these really bad habits. That's my thought.
That's an interesting point. I'm certainly seeing a lot of tactical thinking rather than strategic thinking, fighting fires and dealing with the now. And very few people are, you'd be great to talk about this, Pete, but being able to lift their heads up and think, we didn't plan for this for sure, but what kind of plans can we put in place that will be the lighthouse, if you like, to say this is how we're going to deal with this. Otherwise, you're just fighting call after call. Pete?
Yeah, I completely agree with what Kevin has rightly said there. And it got, I think, in week one, where even a firm the size of Smith & Williamson had a few speed bumps in terms of the off-site working and dialing into the firm's servers. We literally had to go out and buy another whacking great server to increase our bandwidth to cope with the thick end of 2,000 people suddenly working from home and dialing in. Once we'd cracked that one, then as Kevin rightly says, the working day just extended with, and I was guilty as much as the next person, with just one phone call, Zoom, all these other new technologically based platforms to communicate. Got to get used to those and get your head around the functionality of all of those. But all of a sudden, Mrs. Fairchild's got another gun to my head saying, come on, we barely see you during the working week at the best of times. And now you're working from home and we actually see you even less. This is just insane.
Yeah.
So we've actually been disciplined enough to produce, as typical accountants, a spreadsheet which lists all of the staff, and then recognising that, okay, we're on the Easter holiday break now from school, but last week and the week before people were homeschooling as well, and actually saying, look, please populate a spreadsheet to say when you are available to work at times that suit you best. And actually staging that across the day, recognising that some people were parents and were doing the teaching in the mornings, was great because they wasn't then clogging up the server to actually increase the bandwidth available for everybody else. So we've actually stretched the working day, but actually now we've been a bit smarter about it. It suits people's daily lives. So people can fit in with the schooling. They can do their daily exercise out and about with the kids, if it's a walk over the common, the park, whatever. But actually, client needs sometimes have to take a bit of a step back. And clients, if you're that close to them and that honest with them, will probably respect that as well, because surely they're in the same position.
It's a fair point. Robert, how's the accounting machine holding up under this stress?
At Catax, we've got the head office is about 100 people there, and everyone's working from laptops. And it's been like a lot of people I've talked to, it's been like we're in a disaster recovery mode at the moment. I mean, we've all had the cabin fever. You can see genuine fear in people's voices when we're talking to people, because it's just, well, the word unprecedented has been used a lot, but no one was aware of what could happen, and the way of life has totally changed. I mean, I quite agree that it's more discipline to, probably like everyone else, at the end of the day, your eyes are stinging because you're looking at that screen and not taking time out, and it's just slowly, planning it better is with your workload is much easier. Yeah.
Philippa, we've had some chats around the values that accounting firms are adhering to and companies generally throughout this. How do you feel they're holding up?
I think at the moment, to be honest, they're not even thinking, it's not even on their radar. I mean, it doesn't matter what they stand for, as all of you have been saying, that they're just really up against it. And in fact, what I would want to talk about is that the sort of change curve, because I think we're in week 3 now, And despite it being very difficult, for a lot of us, we're beginning to process it. We are getting used to Zoom calls, all of this good stuff. But they haven't even had the chance to process it yet. They're still in that position where they're just, trying to help everybody else. And they, at some point, do need to have that transition to be able to sit back and go, actually, what happened there? And my fear is that with all of the financial kind of unknowns, that tail is going to go on and on and on for them as they start try and work out what it means. And they're just going to keep going through those various iterations of speaking to clients and trying to keep going. Question is, all of those values and all of that kind of vision, if you like, it has pretty much been put on the back burner. So when do they get to think about that? That would be my question.
Mark, you've been in this game for a long time. How are these people holding up, these companies, these firms?
It's interesting. I agree with what you're saying, Philippa. I mean, I have a smaller selection of accountancy firms that are working with us on sales and strategies and stuff, but it's increasing. I think personally, I think maybe week one we were all in panic mode and everyone was in panic mode. And then I think there's an element of, and however long that lasts, it varies for different business, different sectors, different everything else. Then I think we're going into that kind of taking stock phase. And then I think they'll be moving, what does the future look like? And I think they're three quite distinct phases as I interpret things. And I think depending on where you are in the sectors or the industries that you're working in, probably has an impact as to where you are on that stage. I would say, I'm involved in a couple of businesses personally. And one of the things I will say is I haven't received a telephone call from my accountant. I have received a series of blanket, faceless, unpersonal emails, which have kept me informed. Of course they have, but I haven't had those conversations. And I think there's probably partly because maybe a lot of maybe partners of those kind of, they're stuck in, as you say, stuck in the do kind of action as much as anything else. And I think like anything else in life, you've got to get organised at some stage. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen for various different people, but you've got to get organised at some stage. And I personally believe the sooner people start getting into urgent versus important and being able to clarify that. I mean, I've been a big fan of colour-coded diaries and all sorts of stuff for years and years and years, from a purely efficiency perspective. I think the sooner people get into that kind of mode, the more clarity they're going to have, not only in their professional space, but also going back to the point you made, Peter, about the family stuff and the use of time as well. You start getting a little bit more clarity and a bit more perspective on, the wider things in our lives as well.
Vipul, welcome to the call. We're just talking about how the accounting profession is holding up under the stress. Is it buckling as a machine? Do you want to do a quick intro, Vipul, and then give us your take on that?
Sure. Hi guys. I'm Vipul. I run a outsourcing business that works with accountancy businesses. So I don't know if you want me to add anything else at the moment.
We're just talking, how do you feel the accounting profession's holding up, Vipul, under the pressure?
I think there are winners and losers. And I caught the end of that, and it's quite interesting. Shortly before I came on the call today, I was talking to a firm who has said that one or two of their local competitors seem to have just shut up shop, furloughed all their staff, and are doing nothing. And he was, whereas he as a business, the two partners there have been out, not physically, but talking to all of their clients, and they're really seeing a difference. And he was sort of asking, whilst we want to take on business, perhaps not now, and what would be the best way for them to approach that. So I certainly think there are winners and losers, and I think because they have been a cloud business, they've focused a lot on cloud. That's helped them immensely to support their clients. So
great.
I think that's probably, if I was to say if there's a winner or a loser, it's those that have been able to move large chunks of their clients to the cloud that are able to better support their clients than others.
I want to talk about. Go on, Philippa.
Sorry. No, this ability to communicate as well. I mean, I know we all joke about accountants and how they're accountants for a reason and they like spreadsheets, but you know, there are differences in the way that this is approached. So as you said, Vipul, there are people who literally shut up shop. There are others who, as you were saying, Matt, I had the same. I just had a series of very, very long emails, which quite honestly meant that I had to try and decode it myself. And then there are those other accountants that get on the phone and make sure that you're okay and spend all the, you know, as much time as they can trying to provide specific guidance for you. And I would say that I've actually changed my accountant over the last couple of weeks as a result of that. I just think when we're talking about values and how a business operates, and I think that's obviously how they deal with this kind of fallout is very, very telling, isn't it? So
it's interesting that the accountants are shutting up shop and furloughing their staff, because for my own practice, I've got clients who are taking on contracts, who are signing up new customers. We're signing up new clients. I can't believe why you would even want to think about that. Just because some clients are struggling, there's a lot of clients out there making it happen. We had a client sign up £1 million contract as a builder yesterday because he's using drone footage and going out at 5 o'clock in the morning to price up jobs. Okay, he can't start yet, but he's doing all the contract work, and you know.
And interestingly on that, it seems doubly weird because, right, there are now literally, I mean, talking from a capitalized perspective, right, we've never been busier. Yeah. We're helping more accountants than we've ever worked with. We're bringing new accountancy firms on board daily. Yeah. And the opportunity is ginormous. So I don't understand why you furlough and close up on probably the opportunity to get the closest to help and support your clients than there has ever been. Clients are literally calling out, desperate for help from accountants because there's no one else that can advise and support them. And you're saying, hey, see you later, we'll be back in 3 months.
Yeah. Well, they won't. And I think that was the thing. And, you know, that they're not our clients, but that's the piece that's important in all of this is the firms that will come out of this. And sorry, Philippa, it is about culture and approach and wanting to talk to people. And it is absolutely those that survived. And, you know, I shared the other week about anything that I'd experienced, anything close to this, was the recession of the 90s, where half my office was made redundant. And there were 5 trainees in my year. The 2 of us that survived were the ones that were good with clients and colleagues. We were, you know, I'm sure of the 3 that were made redundant, they were better technically as accountants than either Lee or I were. But and I think it will be the case now that whether it's an employee or whether it's accountants, it will be the ones that are able to communicate the best, as you say, that will come out of this stronger.
Well, let's pivot here and go on, Matt. You wanted to add something real quick?
So just one of the things, I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time mentoring and coaching sales managers and MDs as well. I mean, the other thing we've done is we've fallen into this whole, you make the point there, people, I'm similar age, I was 50 last year. There was no internet when I first stumbled into sales and promoting type products and services. So the reality of it is, what's happened in the last however long is we've become very dependent on electronic technology, which is great in some contexts. It's absolutely appalling for client care and customer and client relationships. You know, the reality of it is we spend time, you know, our primary communication tool these days seems to be email. Our secondary communication, if we get that far, is telephone, and our third one is face-to-face. Okay, so we've got to substitute that with Zoom meetings and GoToMeetings and those sorts of things. But the organisations and the businesses and the firms or anything else like that actually bring back the human side of things, so turning that back on its head, the face-to-face, or I call it the two-way interaction. You know, we're having a two-way interaction, we're a multiple-party interaction here, but if you think about the relationships that you have with your client, it's a two-way, the two-way, how are you feeling, how's this, how's that? It's a two-way interaction. And there's so many organisations up and down the country just hiding behind a faceless broadcast one-way email, one-way tool.
You have a good rant, Matt. Get it all off your chest. Well, let's pivot nicely here into leadership, because in tough times, your messaging should be changing. And we need strong leaders, clear visions, quick decisions. And I'm seeing 4 kind of leaders. I was writing something to create a video. See if you agree with this. The first is an emotional leader. So there's nothing wrong with a bit of compassion, but in terms of making decisions, they go where it's safer. They go with the consensus. They go with what's likely to get them into the least trouble. Their mind is weak. They worry a lot. They're a bit more negative and doubtful. The second type I'm seeing is the cautious leader. There's nothing wrong with a bit of caution and deliberation when you're making hard commercial decisions, but too much thinking, the engine stalls, there's no focus, they have a let's wait and see policy, nothing really gets done. The third leader I'm seeing is a reactive leader. There's nothing wrong with reacting quickly, but they're just more tactical. They keep changing their minds. They pivot from one response to another. They're all about fighting fires rather than setting direction. And then the fourth leader I'm seeing is the strategic leader, and they are practical, they're realistic, they've got one foot in the now and one foot in the next. They're opportunity focused, they're seeing upside, they've got a strong positive mindset. And these kind of leaders, whether you're in an accounting firm or you're serving an accounting firm or you're in a business, there's different kinds. So I'm just going to open up the floor there. What are your views on leadership, the way we are leading, the way the profession is being led right now, and what is it saying? Robert, do you want to kick us off?
I think it's 2 extremes, excuse me. Excuse me, I think it's 2 extremes. You're quite right. I'm finding, the furlong, the head in the sand, and then the ones that are making a difference. And the ones that are making a difference are making, the stimulating the industry to get results and number one, looking after the client.
Yeah. Pete, how's leadership going where you are?
I'll mute myself. Yeah, I think you've described the various categories there, Rob, of leaders very well. In fact, I can, as you were talking through the various categories, I was thinking which of my partners would fall into each of those particular subgroups. And in the firm our size, I think a blend of most of those is actually probably not a bad thing. But it does require that sort of more, I would call it forceful leadership, to actually say, okay, well, I've heard everyone what you've said, but there is a job to be done here. And at the moment, we've got clients and contacts screaming out for assistance and help. So, going back to the point that was made about hiding behind email traffic, I mean, I'm one of those that, is very much, let's get on the phone and actually talk to people and get the answer, rather than, we're sitting there in the depths of January waiting for a client to provide their last piece of information for their tax return, and the manager turns around and says, well, I sent them another email. Okay, great. Well, it's probably gone straight to their junk folder. They probably haven't even seen it. And how many times you've emailed within over the last few months, or 5 or 6? Well, if they're not answered before, why are they going to answer you now? Just get on the damn phone and just pick up a conversation, because at the time, invariably you'll probably pick up some other hints and tips of what's occupying their thoughts that could become the pre-year planning point that you may not otherwise have got the data for. So that proactive nature, I think, is invaluable. And I think it enables us as accountants to say, well, look, you've got this particular issue coming down the track, and actually there is a couple of solutions. Let me talk you through those. And more importantly, we want to make money. So here's the fee estimate for that. But if you do this, then out of this, your result will hopefully be a multiple of the fee that you would be expending. So the client can then see what's in it for them. And, sort of quite aggressively, I think we've then got the client almost backed into a corner where, why would they say no?
Yeah, thank you, Pete. That's so good. Kevin, I saw a wry smile on your face as Pete was talking there. What are you seeing about leadership?
Yeah, it's just interesting, just listening to Peter there, and your very good list there, Rob, of emotional, cautious, reactive and strategic.
Yeah, and I'll put a video out on that just to flesh them out a little bit. So watch out for it.
What went through my mind is emotional, cautious and reactive. Are they leaders? But then I was listening to Pete there talking, and I thought, okay, it's perhaps it's leadership in terms of leading your clients, and as Pete was saying, they're leading your staff to do the work that in the most efficient, best way to do it. Because if you're a bit emotional about all this and you're sitting there, and I've seen people saying, "Oh, I just don't know what to do with my clients. I don't know what to say to them." Well, that's not really a leader, is it? It's just emotional.
But they say adversity creates leaders, or at least it thrusts people to the front into leadership roles. And
yeah, absolutely. And then they become strategic leaders if they know how to do that. That's the thing. They need to learn how to step up to the plate.
But if they can't become a strategic leader, they will default to a cautious or emotional or whatever leader that they are, and maybe they weren't meant for leadership.
Yeah.
Philippa, I know you're anxious to come in here because you have some thoughts on leadership.
Yeah, I mean, in my conversations, I've seen two kind of extremes, I guess, so far, and we'll see how that goes. But I don't disagree, Rob, with what you were talking about. But we have that strategic leader who has actually done the work already, and so they do have a very strong vision. They do have really strong values, and yes, it's testing times, but what they've managed to do is revert back to that, include their teams and say, so what does this mean to us now? How are we going to use the blueprint further? So they've sort of pulled everybody together and put them in one direction, and everybody feels like they own problem, if you like. But you know what, I've found over the years that there are very few who are like that. You can learn behaviors, but there are some who are just naturally able to do that. And then there was another business I spoke to yesterday who they're £100 million business, and a family business as well. And he said, and they're Italian, he said, so there's a lot of family values and sort of pulling together. He said, but at the end of the day, I could lose £50 million with what's going on at the moment, and I'm paying out £1 million every month for people to do their jobs. So I'm having to manage the fact that actually we just need to get on, and there are those people who are key workers who need to be in the factory, and there are those who aren't, and he's having to juggle kind of people saying, well, why aren't I, so he's had to be a lot more kind of directive, I guess, just to keep control. But that's a bigger business, so it's probably more difficult to get everybody's input.
Yeah. Phil, leadership?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? So, I mean, I've worked with good leaders and bad leaders in my time. I'm thankful to say I work with some very good ones right now. And, I've been a bad leader and a good leader in my time as well. I think actually, more than anything, the best form of leadership, or the leadership I want to see right now, is people be bold, right? So you can absolutely make safe decisions in this time. And if you make safe decisions, you're going to come out of it okay, right? But actually, it's those leaders that are there, those strategic leaders that can make bold decisions, that can pivot, that can actually come out there and go, do you know what? This is actually an opportunity for us to do things better, different, whatever that is. Actually, those are the leaders that I want to see come out of this. Those are the leaders that I want to follow out of this. And those are the businesses that are going to be successful out of this.
And are we going to see, as a result of, say, poor leadership, that there's going to be some fallout? Some staff won't want to work for some firms because the leadership has been poor. Some clients won't want to be with certain accounting firms because they've not been led in the right way. Matt, what do you think about that?
I think come back to the point made earlier on, really. I mean, the leaders that Vipul, the firms that you've made reference to earlier on that shut up shop, what kind of leadership is that? That's Titanic, isn't it? That's waiting for it to come down, I think, I'm hugely involved in sport. To me, fortune favours the brave. You just, at some stage, you've got to go, right, okay, this feels right to me. It feels, I've got to make some decisions and I've got to go with it. And I think nobody knows what the future looks like. I have a feeling personally that we're going to see some large unemployment at the end of the year, once all the furloughing and people realise, well, do you know what, I didn't need you, in certain industries and certain sectors. And I think
yeah, people, fortune favours the brave. I think the people that make a difference and stand up and get going are going to make some ground.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah, I want to start wrapping things up now, but I'm going to give you all an opportunity for some closing remarks, and you can choose to share some insight that you've learned from this situation that we're in, or some words of encouragement for people listening, or anything that's on your heart. So be thinking about that as I wrap things up. Pete, just coming to you for a brief second. I read yesterday that some of the Premier League football clubs are spending £1.50, £1.95 for every pound they get in on player wages, and there's not good leadership in the way businesses has been run, let alone accounting firms. So there's going to be a reckoning, isn't there?
Crikey, we could have a whole morning session, I think, talking about this sort of stuff, Rob. But yeah, people are very quick to point the finger at Premier League footballers because of the wages that most people know that they typically earn. But I think it goes much wider than that. You've got hedge fund managers, you've got high-level bankers, you've got people in the accounting, legal professions that perhaps could be doing a bit more. So we are all in this. We're all in this together, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And just a word of whilst I've got the floor, to congratulate NHS staff for the marvellous work that they continue to do. And I shall certainly be out there again tonight at 8 o'clock, stamping my feet and clapping my hands loudly, because the stuff that we're facing, and we think some of that's quite difficult. Well, I think it's a different world over there that we just don't see.
It's a good shout. So I'm going to pass it over to closing remarks. So have a think about what you want to say. Just before I do that, I will share the story of my pastor at my church, Alistair. He's got quite a sense of humour. He went for a run and he timed it so that he got back from his run at 8 o'clock when everyone in his street was outside clapping. And his son has videoed this, and it's had 1.6 million views on TikTok. So he's coming down the street with his hands up like this, taking the glory of the crowd. Now, it's a bit of fun, but it's quite smart thinking that to get a little bit of attention. So closing remarks, anything that's on your heart, any words of encouragement, any insights you want to say? Kevin, I'm going to start with you first.
I've got two things. Firstly, I'm in trouble now because I really need a haircut. This is my biggest problem at the moment. The second thing is, I started my business in 1991. I was one of those that got made redundant in 1991. I was 21 years old, thrown out on the street, and I just bought my first house. And it was a tough couple of years, really tough couple of years. And I don't think that the COVID crisis, or let me rephrase that, the COVID crisis is just a thing that's going to cause a massive recession, just as we had the recession in 1991, just as we've had the banking crisis. It's perhaps just going to be much, much bigger. The outcome for everybody, it is the same. You have to change, you have to adapt, you have to lead. And those that do will survive, and those that don't won't. And it's kind of regardless, really. I just think there's just going to be more of it. And I personally think that this isn't just going to be, this is just my personal opinion, this isn't going to be over in 3 weeks, 3 months. We will still be talking about this in 20 years' time. This is going to be huge. And unless people do something about it, then, people will shut up shop, and that'll be it. They'll shut up shop. And those accountants might be working in Tesco's next week. I don't know what they'll be doing, but,
It does have an air of, do you remember when about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you remember back, like our parents talked about the war and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So, Vipul, closing thoughts from you, sir.
I think it kind of goes back to my own beliefs, and I've shared this. It's something I passionately believe in, because the man who looked after my parents' account, business for 15 years, and it's what drives me every day. Accountants change lives, but not by producing a set of accounts. And what we're seeing now is definitely going to sort the wheat from the chaff. And I think the poor accountants will be seen for being that, and the really good guys will really prosper. And rightly so. I think they've stepped up and helped their business clients through what is emotionally and financially a very, very tough time.
Thank you. Robert, what would you like to leave us with? Hang on, Robert, you're muted. Let me just unmute you. Go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I think...
I thought you were pausing for thought then to say something really profound, so...
Just that the accountants are the only trusted advisor we have now in the business world.
It's certainly not the banks, is it?
It's certainly that. Is exactly. It's not the banks, and I just want to make aware that other ways of looking. You know, again, going back to cash injection for businesses, which is cash is king. Look at R&D, look at patent box, that sort of thing. That it's there. You need to look at it. Different ways of looking at your business to see how you can maximise it.
Mm. Thank you, Matt. Thoughts from you?
I just think a number of firms are going to lose quite a lot of clients. They're going to lose clients that are going to go bust, that are just going to disappear. And I think firms are going to lose clients because they didn't respond. And it's like anything else in life. People remember the people that look after them when the chips are down.
Mm.
And I think that could potentially, going back to the point Kevin made as well, and Vipul made as well, is that's what creates the clarity in the future moving forward, and that's where people thrive and some people only just survive, sort of thing.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Philippa, thoughts from you?
Well, I've been talking about purpose and values-driven businesses for a long time now, and I think before COVID-19, there was a lot more conversation around that and the importance of it moving forward. Now, obviously, that's come into sharp kind of focus, and there have been good and bad across industries, winners and losers. And I think from an accountancy perspective, we're hearing about the winners and the losers, and it's those people who are able to connect emotionally on whatever level. It's the communication bit that's important, and that's what's going to keep those accountants winning. But obviously, once this is over, and who knows when that's going to be, there needs to be some time to think about how all of these businesses coped, what their strengths and weaknesses were, and how they need to change and think about the future. What's that going to look like for them, including accountants? Because as some of you were saying, they can't just go on being an emergency all the time. They need to sit back now and think about what the implications are for the future. And that is their vision and how they set up their business model as a result of that, and take their employees too. So really important times, I think.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Phil, thoughts from you?
Yeah, so three really quick things. Firstly, don't go back, right? If you've made a change and it's worked, don't go back to what you were doing beforehand, right? Run with that change because it was probably the right thing. The second one, and for me, I think probably the most important, is this is the time to be your best business, be your best self, be your best person. You can come out of this and you can look like Mike Ashley, or you can come out of this and not. And let's not, right? Let's not be that person that comes out and makes the worst decision at every possible turn. And finally, and I think most importantly, just support local businesses, right? Because they're the ones that have been hit the hardest. I certainly don't weep for, the Philip Greens and those kind of businesses where they're having to dip into their massive cash reserves to survive. I weep for the local fish and chip restaurant or the local grocer that genuinely has been really hit hard by this. So let's go back to kind of old school values of being our best, of supporting local and really kind of running with those positive changes that we've made.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Phil. Pete, last word from you before I wrap up. I've heard somebody say that accountants are the frontline health service for business. They're on the edge and keeping livelihoods going. You're on the bleeding edge of that yourself. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm just really going to try and put into other words what's been said already, really, because the communication word that Philippa sort of mentioned in particular, I think is absolutely key. And I think at the start of this crisis, we was at pains to look after our existing clients and just show them some extra TLC, because frankly, if we wasn't going to talk to them, who was? And now that, we've got some understanding about some of the help measures that are out there. We've been at pains to go through our pipeline of potential new clients and just try and engineer conversations with them, because invariably, I think Philippa said herself that she's changed accountants because, you know, she perhaps wasn't getting the support that you were looking from elsewhere. And quite genuinely, even in times like this, I am sending out professional inquiry letters to outgoing accountants saying that Smith & Williamson's been asked to take over, perhaps more than I have in the last few months put together. So, you know, I think there's a great chance of getting an influx of new clients because we want our firm to prosper. You know, and I think Matt picked up the point, if others are not doing the same, then they could find their future looking rather bleak. But with all clients that we're talking to, it's not just about the now and the right here and now. It's really about planning for 3 years, 5 years, even 10 years down the line, because, I mean, Kevin said, I think, you know, we could be talking about this in 20 years' time. Bit of a scary subject, but he's probably right. So we need to have contingencies in place as well, as much as we can. And so that means always have a plan B.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Anyone burning to say anything before I wrap things up? Well,
at least we're not talking. I was going to say, at least we're not talking about Brexit anymore, right? So that was the one positive out of all of this, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I want to thank everyone for your perspective, for your insights, for your heartfelt encouragement. We've had some great dynamics here in terms of what we shared. We've covered leadership, we've covered communication, we've covered vision, we've covered being human, haven't we? And the thing that resonates for me, and I've been saying this right from the beginning, is that people are going to get found out. Like I said, there will be a reckoning, and you want to be the person that your clients, your staff remember when the fires go out and the dust settles. Because people have long memories and they always remember how they were treated. They might not remember exactly what you say, but they remember that you cared. And it sounds like we're all doing that in one way or another. So let's keep that message pushing out. But there will be a reckoning, and the world is going to tilt a little bit, and we want to be there when it all settles. So I want to thank you all. Give us a wave as we wrap up and say goodbye, and look out for this when I put it out live. Thanks for contributing. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob.
Cheers. Thanks.